Well, a Fox Business Alert, a major ruling just coming down that could put the new health care law on a path to the emergency room.
A federal judge allowing the lawsuit filed by 20 states to move forward. The key part that the judge allowed was that the states claim that the federal mandate requiring everyone to have health coverage is unconstitutional, and that mandate at the very heart of the entire law. Joining us now for more constitutional attorney Kelly Saindon, along with Fox Business's Rich Edson. Good to see you both. Kelly, what's your opinion? Did the judge make the right call here?
He did make the right call because he's allowing this to get to the merits. If he would have just bounced it based on the objections by the Department of Justice and said we're never going to get to the bottom of this, we wouldn't know whether or not this was constitutional. In this case, we're now actually going to argue about the merits of this actual health care law. So he did the right thing. Okay, so the part that is being contested is the part that says everyone must buy health insurance. Now, how is that different from what is allowed, say, in the state of California, required in New York, that if you drive a car, you have to have insurance. You have to have automobile insurance. Well, that's different because you have to have automobile insurance to protect someone else. Healthcare is to protect yourself and to make sure you get treatment. And the difference is also driving is a privilege. It's not a right. Everybody doesn't get to drive in this country. You have to reach a certain age. You have to pass tests. You employ the right to do so, and that comes responsibilities. Healthcare, they're saying you have to do this, and you may choose never to go to the doctor. You may not be sick, and it's basically like a tax.
All right, Rich, did the administration, they must have assumed that this was a good possibility. What is their step now? Are they just going to follow this all the way to the Supreme Court or what?
No, they're going to have to. If they don't, if this individual mandate goes away, this is really at the foundation of this entire health care law, because the problem is what the law does is it creates restrictions on insurance companies. Now, those restrictions are pretty costly, and with just those restrictions, insurance premiums would shoot up 10, 15-fold. What the individual mandate does is it requires even young, healthy people to pay health insurance premiums. They may not use the services, and in fact, health insurance companies in this system banks on them not using as many services, subsidizing people who go to the doctor more, the older, sicker people. If you remove those millions of Americans paying those health insurance premiums, health insurance rates would skyrocket. It's the entire foundation of this law. If it goes away, the law falls apart.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, going back to the legal issues, Counselor, what happens now? Can you tell us about the process?
Well, what happens now is the lawsuit is now going to be determined on its merits. First, if there was standing to bring this lawsuit. The judge said yes. Now it comes down to, is this constitutional or not? And if the ruling goes either way, you know the other side's going to appeal it. If it's determined to be unconstitutional, then the government's going to appeal it, and by that I mean the federal government. If it's determined to be valid, then the states are going to try to move forward, and the federal government will come in, take it to the appellate court, take it to the Supreme Court. So it's procedurally a couple of steps and probably a few years out before we get a ruling. But it's likely that the Supreme Court is then going to decide, is this constitutional? Is it appropriate? And I think that based on the court being stacked in Obama's favor right now, they're going to say it's constitutional. But I don't necessarily agree with them.
Well, and I'm not so sure that the court is stacked in favor of the administration right now, because some of the replacements that have been made over the past year have been replacing liberals with liberals. But, Rich, bottom line here, we have a new Congress coming in. It may be a Republican Congress. In fact, a lot of people are betting that it will be. How do they use this decision to push their agenda?
Well, what they'll do is they'll try to overturn pieces of this law through the House. The problem with overturning a law is that you've got to pass a law to overturn a law, so they'll have the Senate and the President with them. They're not going to have those type of numbers likely when it comes to next year, but they're going to continue on message here. They've been hitting this health care law. You have the legal challenge on one track. You're going to have a congressional challenge on the other. This is a good PR tool for GOP folks if they want to get elected, because it's not as popular in the polls as the Obama administration would hope.
Does it surprise you, Kelly, that this is being contested by at least 20 states, and does this embolden other states to jump in?
It doesn't surprise me, and it does embolden other states to come in, because it's not mandated that every state has to follow it in a certain way, so they're challenging it. And you have to wonder if it's more red states, more blue states, and if that's what it is. And just, if I may very briefly to go back, the other thing that they can do in Congress when and if the Republicans take control is they can fail to appropriate funding for this. So they can choke off this law without having to repeal it.
That's
they
a
can
very
just
good
not
point.
appropriate funds.
Yeah, a lot of Republicans have been talking about doing that. Rich Edson, Kelly Saindon, good to see you both. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank you.
reaping rewards for failure.